And it's me, so yes, the one and only Paul Friends welcoming you to Starfleet Universe on call. And tonight, well, just got me because I don't see anyone else around at the moment. I know Barry is not here. Barry's not here because I checked with him around 7 o'clock and he was still working. He got up at 4:30 in the morning. So to say the very least, I'm sure he's hopefully tucked away in his bed and sleeping very well at this moment in time. And I see that Dave's there. Dave's in the Twitch chat room for those of you at home that if you want to join us, a good place is actually twitch.tv. There's, the just go to twitch.tv/SFU on call. Obviously, if you're listening to this later, you already kind of know that because I kind of remind that in the news portion of the podcast every single week. And just a reminder for those people who don't listen to the podcast version, that is that next week there will be no podcast because I will be out of town. Jeez, Tampa Bay is beating Dallas in late in the second quarter. Dang. But yeah. So no podcast next week. Take the night off. Take if I like to say, take your sweetheart out to out to dinner. But it's like, yeah, depends. That could be sketch. But anyhow, moving onward and forward. Dave's here too. Dave's both places. Yeah, you didn't actually log in. Okay, that is fine. You can do both. But anyway, okay. This past weekend, unfortunately, I didn't get to play any SFB at the Gamers of Summer in Harrisburg, which was quite nice. I actually enjoyed my time there. I got to play a couple of games of brass against Barry and fellow gamers, though. That was the one thing that it was like 11:30 on Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday, and most people were gonna be showing up around 1 o'clock on Sunday. So they're like, okay, fine. They asked me to want to play brass. And I went, we can get it done in an hour and a half. Yeah, because between him and me, we both know how to play brass quite well. Now, this is also brass Lancashire, so that the rules are a little different. There's certain things that you don't have the beer, you don't have all the kinds of other things that are in Birmingham, which honestly I kind of like. I prefer Birmingham, but that's me. And that's one thing that I definitely appreciated when I went and I played some brass, which is there are two different versions of brass, and they still produce both versions. And I think that actually is a very good thing because there are a similar experience, but not the same rules. There are some differences. Um, Birmingham is has a it's a little more constrained. You have to do a lot more things to get what you want to get done, which I think is kind of nice. There's more of a challenge. It takes a little more planning, a little more, a little more planning. That's the best way to describe it right there. And versus Lancashire, that's that one. It's more simple. There's still certain things that are available that the overall, when Barry and I were playing, we didn't even think about using them just because of we were flying. Um, it and of course I'm playing this and I shot myself in the foot on the first round. What's called the canal era. So, and I think that's where it really cost me. Ah, whoa, that's surprising. Sorry, that's Dave is reporting on the game, the Tampa Bay versus Cowboys, and Tampa Bay's 14, Cowboys 13 because the Cowboys missed the extra point. That's interesting to me just because of that is such a rare thing that you ever see. But it happens. But anyway, moving forward. Now, one thing also I did was actually play a little Eve online. And Doug helped me to get that all set up. So we had Wi-Fi there, so I could set things up. I had an older laptop which actually could play Eve, which was interesting. It was a 2012 MacBook Pro. Sorry, reverse that. Not MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, and actually 13-inch MacBook Air, and it ran just fine. I think that the important thing for it was it has 8 gigs of RAM. Yes, there were some delays, some glitches when it comes to pauses and things like that, that's because of it's underpowered, and that's understandable. Because I actually play on the computer here, which is more modern Mac Mini, and it works quite a bit more. Dang, that thing's hot. So anyhow, which actually the funny part about that is after playing it and had Doug describe some of Eve Online, and the thing is, Doug said something which was interesting to me. Okay. Anyhow, that's not like it started on gaming on the Mac. There's certain things that I get frustrated. I understand what developers want. Developers ain't gonna get, and so some of that is because of just plain and simple that the graphics card manufacturers will not, especially one NVIDIA, proprietary. They won't give the specs out to anybody. It's kind of frustrating when it comes to those things. But anyhow, one thing that mentioned to me, it's like I'm surprised that you weren't more interested in EVE Online and get really into it, because it's not like a lot like Starfleet battles when it comes to combat and all that. It really is not. But because he's a lot of other SFB players have really enjoyed EVE Online. And the thing is, the funny part is I got on EVE Online 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, 2019. Got set it up. Got it all set up. Actually, because then finally actually set it up. Set up my account. Went through the initial tutorial. Here's your ship. This is how you make your ship go. This is how you move the ship. This is what you do. After I went through that, I then updated, the client for Eve, and at that point, it completely broke. And in which case, I wasn't gonna spend hours upon hours trying to fix a game which I just started to learn. Not really good. I tried it a couple times, two or three times, never got it to work. So finally I deleted it, never got back to it. Just reinstalled it, on this machine here, this week, and it seems to be running fine. I got installed. It's running on the MacBook Air. I tried to install it on my M1 Mac. It installs, but it doesn't run. Even though, according to the wiki pages on Eve, it's supposed to run. So, it doesn't. So, I've actually enjoyed it. Actually, I played like an hour of it today. Actually, 45 minutes. Half an hour, 45 minutes. Because I was going through another one of the career agents, which is for exploration, because that looked kind of fun. So I went, let's do that. Now, the funny part about that one is that I started and go, they're not telling me what to do. They didn't. And that's fine. Okay, it's like, okay, so I have to figure this out myself. I started figuring it out myself. actually figured out part of it, and I was correct. I gave up initially because I couldn't find what I was looking for. So I go to the Evil Online. There's a wiki, and they say, "Oh, this is what you got to do for this." Da-da-da-da. It's like, "Oh, okay, cool." I did that, and that helped me. I was the right error, section, which is okay. I need to bring up my sensors so that I can actually find what I'm looking for. And they said, "Well, you gotta do that. You bring up the sensor view. You gotta do this, and then you look for this." It's like, "Oh, okay." So I looked for that, found it, got it, got everything, and I know I've got the second mission is lined up. I know I need to do it, and I looked at it and go, "Yeah, that's gonna take me a good bit of time." So it's like, okay, I don't have enough time during my lunch to do that. So I was like, okay, fine. Put it away, shut it all down. And so I'll probably play some more this weekend. That's one thing I gotta do. I have to go see Doug this weekend because then what did I do? I brought my Federation Commander cards, put them behind the table. Forgot to bring them with me. Oh, sorry, forgot to bring them home. So now I have to go stop by Doug's place, which is in Harrisburg. And I should be able to do that this Saturday. So I'm going to go pick up my Federation Commander cards, which is kind of critical because without those, I don't have those properties for finishing off the cards that I need to do. So that's why it's like, because he was thinking about, he can hold on to them until Gamers of Winter, which is another few months away. It's like, Doug, I need them sooner than later. Because also, he said, oh, Doug might stop by. It's like, no, he won't. Unless Barry might stop by. Barry would stop by only if his wife decided that, that she didn't want to spend time with him, which I completely doubted. I was surprised that he even showed up at the convention, just for the plain simple reason that I know that he had just come in on Thursday, and I'm wondering, I figured his wife might actually want to see his lovely face. Well, ugly face. So, but he was there. But anyway, the great okay, so, I played some games, and then I played a little EVE Online with Doug, and Doug got me introduced, just like, hey, I need to do this. He went through some of the things. But why I even bring it up is plain and simple this. I've been thinking about, of course, SFU. Right now, I'm calling it SFU Adventure. Is what I'm calling it. I might change the name because I know originally I had SFU Ships, and this is kind of based off that to a certain degree. The concept of SFU Ships, which I've described before, but playing EVE Online gave me some ideas, which solved some of the problems that I was just thinking about. Because one of the things I was thinking about with this SFU Adventure, this text-based adventure, is basically that how do you start turns, how do you end turns, how do you basically play kind of SFB-like, FedCom-like, online. And, you can do it. It's like, I was just thinking about, okay, how do I do EA, on a command line interface like that? I'm going, this is kind of difficult. So, when he was talking about EVE Online and talking about how it works to a certain degree, but more than that, I looked at the interface, and just to let you know, I'm not even thinking about EVE Online, the interface, even trying to implement that. Now, actually, one of the funny things was because I was talking to, I don't think it was Doug, I think it was Mike, because Doug, why he was trying to recruit me because he needed some help. So like, okay, I have Monday afternoon to train up and so forth, so I can help you out on Monday night, which I did. He didn't need my help, and we're willing to bet that's because of the people that were going to be attacking his corporation. They kind of they forgot that Monday night was a um, basically a week, not weeknight, but a end of a holiday night kind of thing. So next day you're gonna have to go to work. So, and then one of the bitches, some of those people have like wives or families and going, yeah, just one more thing, or they might had a party on Monday or whatever, and they just totally forgot about Eve. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, he showed up. They didn't show up. Great, because I was still in the middle of trying to get my ship together because I waited till the last minute, and I thought, oh, okay, I can finish this last training mission for the career agent. Because all the rest of them took like 5 minutes or so. But this one was taking like 20 minutes, and I still hadn't completed it. So I was like, I gotta stop this. And the funny part is, okay, I'm deep, and I'm like 4 jumps away from where all my stuff is. So the first thing I have to do before I can go to where I need to get fitted up for my ship that Doug gave me money for, and everything I needed for, and we got it all. We saved a template for what the ship was going to look like. So okay, fine. So I first have to go back 4 jumps, which takes a little bit of time to get to that. Then from there, I have to do 4 more jumps to get to the home world, where I can actually buy the stuff I need to buy to set up my ship. And then after that, then I could actually go see him, which I'm not sure where it was, which is, according to him, basically he's on the other side of the territory of the corporation that I'm currently aligned with, which is Omar, or Amar, Amarr, Amar. I think it's probably Omar. But anyway, so I was like, I'm willing to bet it was going to be like another 9 jumps or something like that. Something that's freaking just crazy number of jumps, I'm sure. And so by the time I would get there, everything would be over, and Doug would be mad. But fortunately, that did not happen. But anyway, moving forward, when it comes to the one thing I noticed, two things. One was when I was talking to Mike that night, Doug's friend. One thing he said, EVE Online wasn't always like it is. It wasn't all these fancy graphics and all that kind of thing. It was very basic at the beginning, which was, of course, I think they said it was built in like 2003 or 2004. I'd have to double check EVE Online history, because there's a wiki page. There's a wiki page. It's probably a whole wiki website about EVE Online. And it has the history. And one of the things, my understanding from me, Mike, it wasn't always this way. It was more basic at the time. I was like, well, that kind of gave me an idea. I was like, oh, that's cool to hear. But more importantly, the idea that I'm getting to, and I'm sorry if I'm blathering on, to get to this point, the point is, okay, just want to double check. The point is that one of the things that really captured me was the idea of timed turns. So let me just do this, and let's do this for the moment. So I'll let you guys see my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, I worked on a little bit of the gameplay for SFU Adventure. I worked through some of those more details, because like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be doing all of this stuff, and actually I did a little more work on it, which actually I implemented the range feature, and actually it works quite nice. I might have to look at how I'm parsing the command line commands, but I'll get to that. At the moment, it's pretty good. What I probably should do is change the way I do it now. which is I have it so that the command itself parses the command. And I probably shouldn't do that. I probably should just take the whole command and then parse it out. Okay, here's the first thing is always going to be the command, and then parameters after that, and then have it so that then they can be more easily processed. Probably that's what I'm just thinking about it now. It's like that's what I should be doing. But anyhow, so I'll probably, given that, I'll probably work on that this weekend for redoing that because I still can do it early on in the process. Even though what I probably should do is rewrite it. It's one of those things that any good software, the first time you write it is junk. Basically, you're doing a design. You're designing it while you're implementing it. And then after you learn from what you've done, then you rewrite it from scratch, and because you know of the pitfalls and so forth that you run into. So, given that, I'll probably should rewrite it at some point. At this moment, I think I'm early enough in the process that at least when it comes to parsing, I can fix that relatively easily. So it's yeah, it's just the parsing itself. Now, so I did this, I worked. I thought through the gameplay. One was the idea of time turns. That's the one thing that EVE Online has, which is the whole idea of timed turns. Everything is based on time. And so what I was thinking about doing, and actually, oh man, I'm not sure how long ago it's been now. That is, geez, 10, more than 10 years ago. I think somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago. It's been a long time. It was when I first took over SFU Online. It's that not long ago that somebody had done the same idea, which was it was the idea of, I think it was time-based turns. I think they also introduced the idea of time-based turns. Though, yeah, because the whole idea was that it was dynamic. I forget if this. I'm not sure if I'm confusing that with Starfleet Command, because I know Starfleet Command. That's what they do. Yep. Yes, Chris. Chris is reading versus plasma once every other turn, and it's like, yeah, but I'll get to that. And some of that's coming from the inspiration of the designer's edition of Starfleet Battles. So wait with me. Now, okay, time-based turns. I'm not sure how much time I'm gonna get for each impulse. Okay. That's one thing I have to put up here. But I'll mention it. But okay, time-based turns. I'm not sure how long. Jeez. I was thinking the reason why I was thinking 6 impulses per turn at all was because that's what I originally thought of for SFU ships. But I might switch it to 8. 8 obviously is easier to implement in the case of taking what is currently available in SFB and FedComp and converting it. So that that makes it easier in that base. But the thing is, I still like the number 6. I don't know why. It just feels right. So at the moment, I'll probably still stick with 6. Now, weapons, big surprise, fire once per turn. Photons fire once every other turn, save for plasma. Now, when it comes to plasma, this plasma is not plasma R's. The plasma that I'm thinking about initially anyway is plasma G's. Because remember, the one thing about this whole thing is it's going to be minimum viable product. The idea is that, as I pointed out here, the right here. Sorry for those people on the podcast. Um, you have SFB and FedCom weapons, but we're going to limit the choices of the weapons that are available. Others, obviously, it's going to be limited by the choice of ships, and those ships are going to have certain weapons. Well, anyway, okay. The weapons that I'm going to make available are photons, disruptors, drones, plasma, and of course phasers. I didn't put phasers in here, but I should have put phasers. The systems I want to make available are the tractor beams, the transporters, and possibly the cloak. Cloak would be interesting to do because of the idea is, like Warp Factor, you're playing a Federation player. Your opponents will be from a different range of empires, from Klingons to Romulans. I was going to say Gorns, but I don't think Gorns. But the idea is the enemies are the Federation. That's what I'm thinking. So, at the moment, there's Klingons and Romulans, which also ties nicely into Star Trek. But anyhow, now the plasmas. This is the one thing that I was thinking with the plasma. The plasmas are not the plasma R's. They're basically the plasma G's from the SFB Designers Edition. Yes, these are not quote unquote Speed 32. These would be more of Speed 20. So in the case of 6 impulses, they move 5 of the 6 impulses. When it comes to the drones, that one I'm still debating on. I'm thinking right now of every other impulse. It's like impulse 2, 4, and 6 is when it moves. Now, also, when it comes to the drones and the plasma, when it comes to launching, it's again SFB Designers Edition. You can only do it at one point in the turn, either at the beginning or the ending. And I haven't figured out if I'm going to just combine the two and have the launching of the drones happen at the beginning of the turn and same for plasma, or maybe I might try to keep it the split, which what I would like to do is try that to begin with, where the plasmas, you can launch them at the end, and when it comes to the drones, you only can launch at the beginning. So it takes that into consideration. Okay, this is one thing that also I got from Eve, and that is, I call them warlord type ships in that you have numbers representing your current shield rating. I'm not going to worry about shield facings. At least initially, that might I might put this thing together and go, I really need to have shield facings. But to start with, I'm going to say no shield facings. Armor, most of the time, most ships will not have armor. Because, only armor ships in the initial SFB Designers Edition was the Romulans. And possibly the older Federation ships. I'm not sure if those were available in the Designers Edition. Because that was one thing that always was interesting to me, was the old light cruiser. Because, the old Federation light cruiser, which when it first was introduced when it comes to SFB, not SFB Designers Edition, but later on, it was described as the Federation's heavy cruiser, that the initial heavy cruiser of the, in I think the early years, I think it was early or middle, I forget which, but definitely it wasn't General Arrow, was that was the heavy cruiser. But then they produced the Constitution class, and after the Constitution class, it was then considered, okay, thank you, Chris. Chris mentioned it was early in the First Romulan War. Um, at that point, it was relegated to from a heavy cruiser to a light cruiser as soon as the Federation Constitution class came out. So, but that was the only time I ever saw armor on a non-Romulan ship. So, so it does have that, and instead of having to worry about all the internals and so forth, it just has hit points. Now, this is from Warlord, to a certain degree, but what it is weapons available are reduced by the number of hit points available, so that depending upon your level of damage, because in Warlord you've got certain levels of damage. You got light damage, which basically you got. I forget what it is. I think it's up to 25%. I'm gonna have to look at the Warlord to find out exactly what the number is, but I think that was a number. But anyway, that means basically you've got internals, but you got a fully functional ship. Then you have, I think it's like the light, heavy, and then dead. I think between light to heavy, no, between light and I have to double check, but because I'm trying to do this off the fly, and I don't remember. I did not look at the rules. But the whole idea is that, okay, you have light damage, medium damage, and heavy damage. So from 0 to light damage, you're fine. Or when you get to light damage goes all the way to like a third of the hit points available. From more than that to 2/3 is medium damage, and then anything after that is heavy damage. And there's no degradation up with light damage. Medium damage, you're degraded by possibly, like, let's say 50% of your weapons, and that'd be an automatic thing, and I'd have to balance it out. Possibly, like 50% of the heavy weapons, 50% of the phasers. And then heavy damage. Then I think you might just have phasers or something like that, or maybe a phaser, or possibly no weapons that are available at all. You're still alive, but you'll have. And now this is not just for the player who's playing the Federation. This is also for the other ships, because the rules that apply to you are the same rules that apply to the computer. If you don't do that, then it's kind of cheating. Though, as one thing I definitely heard about the history of EVE Online, which is, of course, now this is back in the day, and that is that since it's a MMO, massively online something. Anyway, it's a really big online game. So you got, of course, malcontents who are going in, and they actually, the quote unquote police, they shot them up. Not shot them. They had it so they couldn't leave the system. In this case, it was the devs. So they had to create these ultra power, but they're still within the mechanics of the game, until they finally had to come up with the idea of what's called high sec, and basically have ships that come down and kill you. Plain and simple. You can't kill them. They just kill you and you're dead. Plain and simple. So, but originally, all the ships on EVE Online obeyed the rules. Well, until the kind of point where, for balance, to maintain order for at least part of the game, a section of the game, they had to create these godlike ships. They just kill you. So, and I don't want that to be the case. What's the point? I want them to follow the same rules. And which means obviously they have to have the computer player be able to fight. The tough part about that, initially, obviously, the computer-based player for one-on-one, it's easy. Multiples, what you have to do is probably play it as one-on-one. You know, they're not going to work together as number of ships, at least to begin with. You know, if things go well and people actually are playing it, you know, I would probably spend more time and work on multi-ship capabilities, and you know, and actually working as a team, and possibly even let the Federation player to have multiple ships, things like that. You know, obviously some of these commands like add, remove, those would go away in a game. This is going to be probably left to being in there for diagnostic purposes only. So I can add ships and remove ships manually manually without having to programmatically add them. But that's for that. So, understood, Chris. But this is minimum viable product. Start with the Fed playing against everyone else. Then, if it, after that works and it plays well, maybe at that point, and release that minimum viable product, make sure people actually are willing to play it, then move on forward and start supporting some of the other ships. Because the reason why I say possible, okay, I'm going to go back to this one, which is the possibility of cloak. And that is, here's the great thing about this when it comes to the cloak. For an opponent, the computerized opponent to use a cloak, they can do it, and it can move around under cloak. Obviously it can't fire weapons, but it can still see, but it can't fire weapons. And which means that I can have it so it gets removed from the board. And you don't know where that ship goes. And then it will uncloak. You see it and you get to shoot it. Obviously, what I'm thinking about when it comes to the cloak, assuming that I implement it at all, what I'm thinking about is that when you first uncloak, you can't. It can be fired at without penalty, but you can't fire back for a certain number of impulses. I'm thinking about at the moment, of the 6 impulse turn, like 2 impulses. You can't fire for 2 impulses. Now, so that gives the person. I have to give the person either 1 or 2 impulses to fire or launch at that cloaked vessel. And of course, then there might have to be some limitations on the number of cloaks you can do. If you cloak in the turn, you can't uncloak the same turn. If you uncloak one turn, you can't recloak the same turn. Things like that. Where there's some limitations on it. Now, there's one thing that I'm not sure if anyone. Well, obviously, you on the audio only feed won't see, but I'll mention it now, which is there is no energy allocation. So, What that means is that you don't have shield reinforcement. You got weapons that fire, but you don't have reinforcement so that if you go slow, it ain't the only thing that slow does. It gives you a tactical advantage in that you can then not have to go as fast. You don't the approach isn't as quickly. It does not give you any advantage when it comes to energy available to have for shield reinforcement. That's not there. So get so that was the one thing that I also looked at Eve Online and noticed is that okay, there's no energy allocation, and it makes the game very fluid, and I think that'd be great. Now, the tough part that I'm still thinking about, and it's one of those things that I'm willing to bet what I'm gonna have to do, because I'm sticking to the idea of a command line interface. I'm sticking to that. And that is that how much time, because it's going to be a timed impulse, how much time do I give people to respond? When it comes to movement, I could easily have it so that if you move and your time is up, you just go straight ahead. It just goes straight by default. It just goes straight. There's nothing else you can do. When it comes, obviously, the one thing that would still need to be done is, even though it's pretty fluid, there still have to be a pause between turns to allow you to at least possibly set the speed. I have to think about that at the moment. And that is, it could be simple enough. I can give you a time. Again, it could be timed between turns. Like, okay, between the last turn and the next impulse, you get the double amount of time that you normally have between impulses. So let's say you give each impulse 30 seconds. So you have 30 seconds to react to anything. You have your opponents, and I'm not gonna have to worry. I don't have segments. Impulse segments. So you don't have an order in which you do things. It's just that okay, you can either fire before or after movement. If you can fire fast enough, you can fire before movement. If you want to, you can wait until after movement. So it makes it a lot more fluid. But obviously, if you let's say it's 30-second impulses at the moment, and you say, okay, you wait for 20 seconds to move, which means that if it's another player, they might not have time to respond before this. So in theory, you could get it so you can do a double move, and before the person can fire, and that's possible. Obviously, that. I'm not worried about too much about that when it comes to initial layout, and also since it's not going to be player against player, it's going to be player against computer at the moment. I'm not going to have it so that it's going to be the idea is a single player game. That's the concept. It's, as I said, it's like Warp Factor. If I want to go for something that's more multiplayer, that might happen later on. But that's my vision for it at the moment. It's single player. And as pointed out before, the idea of Warp Factor. But the question, as I said, the big question is going to be timing. How much time do I give people? I'm thinking at the moment 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a long time. A lot of these commands you should be able to enter fast enough. Now, obviously, some of this might go away. For example, fire, unit name, weapon abbreviation and letter at unit name. So it's possible you might say, get rid of, since you're only a single ship, the unit name goes bye-bye. it's default, and you just have to say what's your weapon and firing at who, and if you're launching a seeking weapon, launching at who, and of course, when it comes to drones and plasma, since it's at the beginning, at the end, you have to give yourself a little time to do that. And since you're starting out with single ships, with a single ship, 30 seconds should be enough for you to do anything. Now, one thing I'm thinking about doing also is the idea of what I call saved, or kind of a macro idea. The idea is you have a certain number of commands that you may even take a single or a number of parameters that you can enter in. You can have it so that, let's say, I want to fire this weapon, this weapon, this weapon at any unit I specify. So you can just say alpha fire or whatever you want to call it, and then and give it a unit name, and then it'll be the substitution in all those commands, all those fires, boom, boom, boom. You have 3 fires in less immediately, instead of having to type them in for each and every one. So the idea, so that 30 seconds is very doable, is you just set yourself up before the game starts a certain number of macros. When it comes to, I might support the idea of, fire alpha at this unit, which is basically fire every single weapon you have at that unit. Now, the one thing that I have not contemplated at the moment, I'm thinking not worrying about it, which is firing arcs. Obviously, that's something that's ingrained to SFB, but at the same time, it makes things a lot more difficult to do. That's why, that's why, again, I want the whole idea of a single shield number. How much damage can I take? Now, here's the one thing that would be going to be interesting about this, which is, like warp factor, you're going to have to clear out a certain sector, or at least deal with whatever's in that sector. Now, it won't necessarily. The idea for me was not necessarily mean destroy everything destroy everything out there. Warp factor, that pretty much was it. At least that's my recollection. But I want it to be more interactive. I don't want it just to be a combat game. I want it so it's a little more. It's RPG with combat mixed in. That's what I want from this. So in that case, to me, that means that resolution of a sector, the issue with the sector, might mean actually, coming up with a deal or something like that. Possibly even, have an idea of money. Number of credits. You've cleared out the sector, you get 10 credits, or something like that. And then in the case of, instead of fighting a pirate, you can bribe him. It's like, well, I'll give you five credits to not attack and just leave the sector. Okay. Now, that might be good or bad, because, and that's when it can be put in, because, you could be, okay, you bribed a pirate, or, that doesn't look good in your record. You've been relieved from duty. Let's say that maybe you do that one too many times, like that kind of thing. That's what I wanted to. That's the kind of game I want it to be. Initially, to me, obviously initial implementation, I was going to say conflict, but no, initial concept. The initial implementation, the initial thing that I want to obviously focus on is going to be combat, just because of that is one thing that is easiest. It's going to require the most time to do, in my mind, versus some of the back end stuff. Obviously, the whole idea of decision trees when it comes to interactions and so forth. That whole kind of engine is something that I'd have to design. I got an idea because I've built some state as I've mentioned in the past. It's been a while, so some of you have never heard this, which is to me my most at the moment. Actually, there's currently two pieces of development that I've ever done that I'm most proud of. One is when I was first programming back in the was it the 80s or the 90s? I think it was the 80s. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the 80s. In fact, I'm positive it was the 80s. That's when I was first doing C in DOS. And that is one thing that I was most proud of was I created these set of C macros. And what it did was it was something really dumbly simple. But it's one of those things that I was really proud of, which is I implemented queuing. Macros that did queuing. You would the whole idea is that you have an array and then you have a pointer, and then you could go add things to the queue or subtract things from the queue to get things off the queue and so forth. And that queue would actually just give it a certain size. The queue would be a certain size, and then it would just wrap around, and you never have to. And I was really, that was one of my most proud moments is that of doing that simple. Today's like, oh, that's simple. It's like, yeah, but have you ever done it from scratch to build up queuing? And this is the C macros is what it was done, and I guess that's what makes it to me one of my proudest moments, because I did it all in macros. That was one of the things. The other one that I'm really proud of is the state machine that I added in for Federation Commander Online. In that the state machine that is currently implemented to do all of the energy allocation and so forth for weapons. How much energy go from this state to this state does it take? What states are available? All this kind of thing. That's one of the things that I'm really, really proud of that I've done in the past. And so the reason why I even bring that up is that when it comes to decision trees, when it comes to the interactions and how a game would be run, when it comes to different challenges from different sectors and so forth, and having so it actually is a coherent. Well, it doesn't have to be really coherent. If you want it to be coherent, so that it's kind of an adventure kind of thing, is that interactive fiction coming here, and that is. So it would basically be a state diagram. Now the question is, what responses would then, would it then produce what output? So from this state, given a response, when the current state is this one block here. What are the what are the responses? What responses relate to what state, and what state then relates to what given that response, which could be, let's say that a positive response, which could mean the word yeah, yep, yes, yeah, if you want to even da, things like that, and say, okay, those are all positive responses. All those lead to the next state, which was the positive response, or nope, like nope, no, niet, what, pick a language. Sorry. That would then go to a different state. And any other response could be one of two things. You could either stay at that state because like give a valid response, or even have a different response. The idea was like maybe, which then there might be another state. Now the question is, what is attached to that state? Is it just text? Is it, because when it comes to dialogue, it would just be text responses. But in the case of a campaign, in the case, let's say, or outcomes and how that goes to the next state. So, it could have it so that you have different sectors and it goes along the storyline, which that's no big surprise. That's how a lot of games run these days, where, you have to accomplish this and accomplish this and accomplish this. Now, obviously, you have different, if you have different sectors, which are quote unquote different scenarios, you can then, depending upon the outcome of the scenario, you can go to a different scenario, go into a different scenario, whether that is, obviously, if you get killed, well, that ends the whole game. But if they say you do really good and there was 3 opponents, you killed 2, but then you had to flee the sector. Okay, so you killed 2 out of 3. Okay, you killed all 3. Okay, and succeed. Then you warped out. Things like that where you actually, then you have to depend the state or the next scenario. So I've done that before. I can do that. I know how to implement that. So it's knowable. It's a lot of work because the tough part about that is not the writing the code to implement the states and the responses and all that kind of. That's not the hard part. The most of the work is the data for each of the things. Because if you ever, I know I never shown it, but I've got this big file, which I got list the different for each weapon. I had to list the different states of that weapon, and depending upon the state of the weapon, that has itself you can do certain things at certain times in the turn, because you can change the different states using different amount of energy based on the place in the turn. Is it the energy allocation? Is it during the turn, or is it at the end of the turn? Again, depending upon where you are in those 3, because in the case of photons and like Hellbores, I think there might be some other ones, you can do things at the very end of the turn. In the case of photons, you can finish like the overloading or something like that. And there's also, of course, the pre-turn. Before, at the starting of the game, when it comes to Hellbores and photons, you can say, okay, I want to use up all my energy and do that, and that's only for certain weapons. So, it's a challenge, but it can be done. I've done it before. So, that I see as doable. And I want to work on this some more this weekend. I probably will work on this some. I might even play maybe a little more Eve, go through the career path for exploration. I'm also going to be spending 2 to 3 hours traveling on Saturday, because it's going to take me at least an hour to get to Doug's house. And the problem with visiting Doug is a talker. So extricating myself from his premises in a timely fashion is going to be a challenge. So just have to wait and see. And of course, I'm one of those people. I'm willing to listen. Always willing to listen. Well, with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.